Yo, get out of here with them weak ass shoes, yo.
Balls deep. I'm talking about balls deep. I'm talking about balls deep in love. I'm talking about balls deep. I'm talking about balls deep. I'm talking about balls deep in love.
Welcome everybody to season 2, episode 1 of Balls Deep with Devin and Jovan, where we dive balls deep in the hottest stories in sports. We'll start off with Happy New Year. If you're new to the program, uh, welcome. We're happy to have you. But I am Devin. I'm your host, and I'm joined by my co-host, my wonderful co-host at that, Jovan. How are you doing?
Wonderful. I got beautiful last time.
Nah, you're just wonderful
Got
now.
downgraded to wonderful.
um, but what we have planned for you guys today, we plan on talking about some college football, being that the semifinals just happened this past weekend, and we'll be talking about some NFL news now that the NFL season is wrapped up, and we know what coaching vacancies there are thus far. Who knows? There might be some more in the near future, but we know what they are, and we know the wild card matchups. So we'll be talking a little bit about that. But we'll start off with college football. So to summarize what went on, Bama, they just ran over Notre Dame, but Notre Dame kept it close for the first half. But the second half was all Bama. They lost by 17. Devontae Smith went off for 2 touchdowns, which, he's the Heisman. It's official. He secured the Heisman. Congrats to him. He's the third receiver to ever do it. Hopefully he's a future Giant. We can only hope and pray. But they just look like they have all season. I mean, Notre Dame, I think they put up a better fight than Texas A&M did, because they lost by 28. So I think Notre Dame proved that even though it was a blowout, they were the right team to get into the playoffs. What do you think?
I agree. I think that they played a good game. I think Bama started kind of slow, so I'll give some of that credit to Notre Dame. Or not slow, but it was a lot closer game in the beginning. It seemed like if at any point Notre Dame wanted to turn it on and kind of change the game, they left it in the realm of possibility for themselves. Ultimately, Bama was just Bama all night, and they did what was expected of them, and they just went out there and they won. And they won convincingly.
Yeah, it was almost like they kept the game in reach. It was, I think, the deficit was like 14 for some time, and every time they took a step closer, they took 2 steps back. Because as they were itching closer to scoring, they turned over the ball, whether it was a fumble or interception. So the momentum easily just shifted over to Bama, and Bama just took that with them, and they took it to victory, which shows why they're the number 1 team for a reason in the country. But shifting over to the matchup, the 2-3 matchup, Clemson versus Ohio State. We know you're an Ohio State fan, and they came out on top. Me and you both, we both picked Ohio State to come out on top in this game. Me, or I chose them in particular because I said Justin Fields was going to outplay Trevor Lawrence in this matchup, and he proved me right. That man balled out. Just a little glimpse of what he did. He threw for 22 for 28, 385 yards, 6 touchdowns, 1 interception. That 1 interception could have easily been a touchdown. I think he was trying to throw it in the back of the end zone, but it got tipped and ultimately was intercepted. But that doesn't even taint his stat line or his game, because he was hurt for at least half the game, and with these throws that he was making downfield, you couldn't tell he was hurt. He was hurt unless you were like looking at his face while making these plays, because he was definitely in pain.
Yeah, it was a it was a great game to watch as an Ohio State fan. It was nothing but good things. They won by 21 points. First drive didn't look all that well. I was watching it with a friend, and they even said to me, "Oh, he was like, oh, your team's not looking good." But obviously, they turned things around at that point. Because after the first drive, it was really just score after score. Obviously, winning by 21 against a really good Clemson football team is huge. Especially people were saying we didn't belong, even after we won, saying we didn't belong, blaming the targeting call for the reason that Clemson lost, even though at that point we were already
Yeah,
handling
for sure.
business. Um, you talk about Justin Fields, clearly had an amazing game, but Trey Sermon as well had I believe, 193-yard game, a touchdown. Olave, 132 yards, two touchdowns. Both studs played really good. Trey Sermon obviously kind of just showing what he can do as of late. Chris Olave, I've been watching him do this for 2 seasons now, um, and really, um, he's not talked about. But this is something that Ohio State fans see him do week in and week out. So um, I was just really happy to see us come out and play the way we did. We played with an edge, especially because nobody in that locker room forgot about last year, having lost to Clemson, and then obviously the loss is tough enough to swallow, but having felt like the game was kind of taken away from you, even worse. So they came out there and they just showed why they belonged, um, and it was just it makes you
It was
happy.
bittersweet.
It makes you happy. Not at all. It
I
was
mean,
just
I
sweet.
mean, I I was happy because my guy Justin Fields definitely redeemed himself. I mean, you guys redeemed yourselves in general from the loss last year. It was you mentioned the targeting call. I think that targeting call was more of a targeting call than last year's against Sean Wade, which happened to go against you guys. I think if either one had to be a targeting call, it was definitely the one from this season. Uh, but I don't think I think the rule sucks, and I think both
I agree.
situations didn't need to result in an ejection. I think both players deserve to stay in the game, especially at being the national championship out of all games. I felt like they both were deserving to stay in the game. But it really sucks for this linebacker. I forget his name, but he's a senior, and he was ejected I think last year against Bama in the national championship too. What this wasn't the national championship, but it was the semifinals. But being the college football playoffs, I think it needs to be on a uh, almost play by play basis, so it varies.
Yeah, I agree.
Yeah, case by
Case by
case.
case. Yeah, I agree 100%. Even as an Ohio State fan, um, I think by the definition of the rule, I don't think Wade's last year was targeting at all. I do think, however, this one, that might sound biased because I'm an Ohio State fan, but this is no unbiased. 100% this one was, because by definition, it's when somebody leads with the helmet. It's exactly what he did. Um, Led with the helmet, um, and that's really all you need to say. Um, do I think the rule sucks? Yeah, because I don't think it was intentional. Although Justin Fields did get hurt, um, I think the guy was just trying to go out there
For
and
sure.
make a play. Um, it should be on a case by case basis. And really, I think they should implement a rule like the NBA does with the flagrant ones and flagrant twos. Kind of deciding, okay, it was a bad foul, so it's a flagrant. But a flagrant two kind of, you know, it elevates when, it's intentional, it was unnecessary, this, that, and the third. So I think the NCAA should look into something along the lines of that, just so that it doesn't consistently happen. Because we've seen it happen plenty of times where, like you said, a guy in his senior year in such a huge bowl game to go to the national championship is getting kicked out the game. It's just unfortunate to end your college career
Yeah.
that way. You know what I mean? And like I said, I think the game was handedly won at that point. Ohio State looked like they were on top of the mountain. Clemson looked deflated. Uh, but, that player might feel otherwise. He might feel like he would have been able to make a difference, and we never really know. I don't think that takes anything away
Game
from
was
Ohio
already out of
State at
hand.
all. But I just think, yeah, the game was already out of hand. Like I say, I just think it sucks to end your
For sure,
college
and I
career
do
that
agree
way.
with the NBA implementation. I think that would definitely help moving forward. But talking about the national championship, this is the matchup that we should have seen last year. So this is very exciting. Uh, Basically, if you guys come in looking like you guys did against Clemson, Bama might have a problem on their hands defensively. But you guys might have a problem on your hands defensively as well with the Heisman, on the other side. I think in order for you guys to win this game, you guys need to slow him down. Just to throw out some stats, Devontae Smith, he leads college football with 20 touchdowns, and Sean Wade, he's third most in college football in terms of touchdowns allowed. He has 6 touchdowns, and he already said it. He was like, who I want to guard. He wants to guard the Heisman, so uh, that's gonna be a key matchup. Can Wade slow him down? Is what's gonna help you guys. Also, Christian Barmore from Bama, their defensive tackle, he currently has 34 quarterback pressures, which is the most in by a Power Five defensive tackle, and he's gonna be key for them as well. He's gonna cause some disruption, and hopefully Fields is 100%. We've seen what he was like last year against Clemson when he wasn't 100%. But then again, you could also say he wasn't 100% this year against Clemson, but going in he was. But that disruption and maybe him not being as mobile as he normally would be at 100% could hurt you guys.
Yeah. Um, I think overall, I feel pretty confident in our ability. Really, it was the defense, more specifically the secondary, that Ohio State fans were kind of worried about this season. They weren't really performing all that well, and I'm an avid comment reader, and
You
you
know what that
know,
means?
I,
Comment.
consist consistently, Ohio State fans were very upset during games, even during blowouts, about how our defense was playing. And they literally came out and just shut everybody up. I mean, they really, I mean, Clemson put up a good amount of points, but this game was just out of hand. Defensively, it looked like too much for them to handle. Everybody, I'm not saying that he's on the same level, um, but even Travis Etienne, everybody was saying he was a huge impact player for Clemson, saying we needed to stop him and slow him down if we wanted to win the game. He did have a good game by, when you look at the stats, he did have a decent game, but he didn't have that Travis Etienne
Yeah.
game. He had 32 yards rushing on 10 attempts with a touchdown, and you know, receiving, he had 64 yards on 4 catches. Um, it's not a bad game. It's not a horrible game by any means. But if you want to win a game against Clemson and Etienne, one of their best players, has a stat line like that, you have a good chance. So I think we did really good at that. I think if we're able to, do something similar with Devontae Smith, we have a good chance. Obviously, the offense is balling out. I'm not worried about them at all. It really is just a matter of how these corners can match up. And like I said, the way they played against Clemson gives me
I
nothing but
mean, the
confidence
the
in them.
chip on your guys' shoulder that you guys are carrying with you leading into this playoffs because of last year and the doubts that you should even be in the college football playoffs. Hence, Dabo Sweeney ranking you guys 11th for not playing at least 9 games. Um, that chip on your shoulder, I think, gives you guys that push into the national championship, similar to that push back when you guys won the national championship with Cardell Jones and Ezekiel Elliott, and that combo, having that balance on offense allowed you guys to and also being the underdog gave you guys that chip on your shoulder. Whereas in this case, Trey Sermon, the way he's been balling out, and Justin Fields, that's that balance that you guys need offensively, and having that chip on your shoulder of being disrespected going in. and playing the number one team, now having to prove who's really the number one team. And like this, we were supposed to have this opportunity last year, not Clemson, and now we're here, and we're here to take care of business. So, I think carrying that with you guys will help.
Well, I agree. And a part of me, that is something in the back of my mind is me hoping that we don't lose that edge. Clearly, it's a national championship game. I don't think that we're going to come out flat. But when you have a matchup against Clemson, you know that they're hungry because this is the team that beat them last year when they felt like they shouldn't have lost. So I'm just hoping that they still come out against Bama with that same high energy and that same execution and just go out there and win a football game. That's really what they have to do. So I'm just hoping that it being Bama and not Clemson, having that little bit of just a little bit of hatred for Clemson for what happened. I'm hoping that they don't lose that edge because it's Bama. I don't think they will. I think they're still hungry. I think they still feel like they have stuff to prove. But we'll see. I think it's going to be a good matchup. But obviously, I'm not.
I think it's a good
Clemson.
matchup as well. I'm still picking Bama just because I still question that defense. But I'll be rooting for you guys. Being a Georgia fan, but as a Georgia fan, if you guys take that lead early, don't get too comfortable now. But for you guys, for you guys watching, make sure to comment below. Who do you guys think will come out victorious with the national championship? Will it be Bama or will it be Ohio State? We'll be looking forward to seeing what you guys think. But shifting over to the NFL, Wild Card Weekend is finalized. It's set in place. There's 6 very interesting matchups. It's Saints, Bears, Rams, Seahawks, and what other game am I? Oh, Bucks, Washington, football team on the NFC. And the AFC, it's Bills, Colts, Titans, Titans, Ravens, and help me out with the last one. Steelers, Browns on the AFC. So, which matchup are you looking for, or which matchups are you looking forward to most out of those, and why?
For me, it's got to be Seattle versus Los Angeles. Simply because a lot of these are. This is not. A lot of these are divisional matchups, but this is a divisional matchup that I think will have the closest outcome. I think these two teams are really just neck and neck with talent. I think what makes it hard to just go out and pick Seattle, because I actually do have the Rams winning this. But what makes it hard for me to pick Seattle is the inconsistency of this season. But also what makes it so hard to pick against Seattle is that it's Seattle. They're so talented. Their defense has only gotten better throughout the season. Obviously, Russell Wilson can turn it on just like that and play out of his mind, as well as the two receivers in Tyler Lockett and DK Metcalf, who are capable of putting up 150-yard games at any point. Tyler Lockett had put up a 200-yard game this season. The team's full of talent. Jamal Adams, list goes on and on of players that they have on that field. So every time I come up with this matchup, and who do I think is going to win, in my mind it almost flip-flops almost every minute. Like I said, currently I got the Rams winning, but I always get a feeling at one point or another damn, maybe I should be going with Seattle. So in my opinion, that's the game that I'm just really excited to see. I'm excited to see all these games. They're all really good football teams. I can't really say that there's any bad football teams in the playoffs this year, other than Washington football team.
They can still pull off an upset.
Yeah, and 100%. And you saw what Bruce Arians said. He said we're not facing a 6-10 football team. But... We're facing. Oh, yeah, 7-9. He said we're not facing a 7-9 football team. We're facing a 4-1 football team, because with Alex Smith, the 5-1. I'm sorry, we don't count that Eagles one. We're not counting that. Uh, so he said, they're 4-1, but actually, that it's funny though, because that is actually the direct quote. He said, with Alex Smith, this is a former football team. So he's taking this very seriously, as I think everybody should, because I think Washington is capable of surprising some people. But like I said, that's my matchup to watch for me, because I think it's such a close game. Is
I mean,
Seattle and Rams, but I do have the Rams winning
so
currently.
it's questions that you mentioned that are funny that you mentioned that because that's the game I'm looking forward to most in terms of the NFC. Um, just because both games were very competitive and down to the wire. I have the Seahawks winning. I know you had the Seahawks winning in your season prediction at early on before the season.
And
But I'm just
early in the
letting you know,
season when we made our
if
yeah.
you better hope Russ don't wear that Kobe jersey coming into the game. You know what happened last time.
Hey man, it ain't even honestly. I won't even be mad if Seattle wins. I love Seattle. It's
Yeah.
just hard to pick them right now because you don't know when they're gonna be
I
hot,
mean, but
when
their
they're gonna be
defense has
cold.
been improving as the season progressed since
Yeah.
Jamal Adams has returned. But for me, I'm gonna take my challenge to the AFC, um, just because I think as a collective their matchups are more interesting. Um, I'm not gonna mention the Browns game because I don't think that's interesting at all, especially with COVID interrupting that matchup. Now that Kevin Stefanski's out, and you know, I think they're missing two other players or what have you. So that's in terms of the storyline, that's interesting, I guess. And they just played a close matchup against a backup. It is what it is. The matchups I'm looking forward to is the Bills Colts game, and the reason why, although me and you both, we're not fans of Philip Rivers and his inconsistent ass. I think the matchup I'm looking forward to most is the line of scrimmage. Who's going to win the line of scrimmage between the Colts well, either way, who's going to win the line of scrimmage on both ends is going to be very interesting, and I think it's going to ultimately win the matchup. But the matchup I'm looking forward to most is that Bills offense versus that Colts defense. Colts defense has been one of the best this season, and the Bills are on fire. They're probably one of the hottest teams, if not the hottest team, going into the playoffs. And I don't know, that offense got me like they're turning me into a fan, and I think the way they're playing, they might give KC a run for the money. They might be, their biggest competitor in the AFC. Just the way that they're playing, they're just been so electric on both ends, but specifically their offense. But I also like the other matchup, and although a lot of people are doubting the Ravens because they lost last year to the Titans and they lost in the regular season to the Titans, I'm interested in the storyline. Does Lamar Jackson overcome this hump come playoff time? He's 0-2 in the playoffs. A lot of people are, saying that he can't win come playoff time, yada, yada, yada. But mind you, they had to win. They had to go undefeated in order to make the playoffs. They've won 5 straight heading into the playoffs, and I think the game that's going to stand out of those is the Browns game, because I think um, that's going to prepare them for a playoff atmosphere. And we know he was out and he came in and won them the game like Superman. He ran from the locker room and won them the game. I think this game's going to be interesting. I don't even know. This is like with the Rams game with you. Every time I think about this game, I flip flop back and forth. Originally, I had the Titans, but at this moment, as we're recording, I'm thinking Lamar Jackson is going to come out and ball and win this game because they played in Week 11. The Titans beat the Ravens 30-24 in overtime, and that was a big Derrick Henry run. And I don't know. I just like the Ravens defense more in this matchup. Especially both teams are run heavy, and the Ravens defense is 8th against the run, whereas the Titans defense is 19th against the run. But I think it's all going to depend on the success of their quarterbacks in the passing game. Who's gonna do well,
Uh-huh.
or do better? Will it be Lamar Jackson or will it be Ryan Tannehill? Um, the past two matchups has been Ryan Tannehill.
Yeah. No, I agree. That should be a good game. Most of the time I'm thinking about this game. Obviously, Baltimore always has the opportunity to win, but I'm really liking Tennessee in this game. I
I
think
don't
they're
blame
gonna
you.
win it. I'm pretty set on that, honestly. Um, I think I mean, Lamar Jackson said that, the Chiefs are their kryptonite. But right now, like you said, they're 0-2. He's 0-2 in the playoffs. Um, you need to win a playoff game before you can even get the opportunity to face KC. So right now, the playoffs are their kryptonite. Um, and honestly, I just think Tennessee is a really good football team right now. They're just playing solid football all around. What Arthur Smith is doing for that offense and Ryan Tannehill in general this season has been great. If I'm the Titans, I'm hoping he's not offered a head coaching job because what he's doing right now for that offense, specifically Ryan Tannehill,
Agreed.
is amazing. Um, so I think Tennessee does win this game. Um,
Like I
that's
said,
that.
I'm flip flopping back and forth
I think it'll be a close one.
for
It's
sure,
definitely a close
for
one.
sure.
It's tough, but for me, I got to go with Tennessee.
Hey,
They've been
come
more
game time, I
consistent
might
this whole
switch back.
year.
I don't know, but but as we record, I'm in the groove with the Ravens.
That's good. That's good. That's gonna be me if I see Russ pull up that Kobe jersey.
I don't know. These matchups are going to be very interesting. Even though Washington's below 500, they have the chance of upsetting the Bucks. Anything's possible, and I'm interested to see what happens. But in terms of these head coaching vacancies, there's six of them: Jags, Jets, Chargers, Lions, Texans, Falcons. To start off, the Texans did fill their GM position. They hired Nick Caserio, which was the Patriots. He worked for the Patriots in their personnel department. Um, they tried hiring him. I think it was a couple years ago, but they was about to get fined and lost the draft picks, so they pulled back. Gave Bill O'Brien the rights to their GM position or the responsibilities, and that was the end of their franchise. Because there you go, DeAndre Hopkins out the window, draft picks out the window.
Deshaun Watson to the
Well, Deshaun Watson
Giants.
now
They're
wants out. Who knows? So that was an interesting hire. I was on record telling people that their best chance was John Dorsey in terms of getting draft capital back. But realistically, they were going to go the Patriots way because they like to be the Patriots 2.0, and that's what they want. They went that direction. But my question to you is, if you were a head coach and you had a chance to go to any of these teams, which situation would you want to go to? Like, what's the best landing spot in your eyes?
um. So personally, um, I've always been a big fan of Atlanta's culture in terms of when it comes to their football team. Um, I love what Arthur Blank does over there. I feel like he has a great relationship always with his GMs, his head coaches, and his players. Um, I feel like he's very personable. He's not just the owner of the team. He makes that team seem like a family. I mean, that's literally Atlanta Falcons. They call it a brotherhood, and it seems that way. So I love the culture over there. It seems like it'd be an easy group of guys to coach. It seems like they have a very coachable unit in general. They have loads of talent. I think third or fourth pick this year in the draft. There's obviously been some talk of Julio and possibly Matt Ryan being dealt. Um, I honestly think whether or not they are dealt, Atlanta has uh, a very good chance of winning sooner than some of these other teams. In my opinion, there are some very good teams out there, obviously, but with everything as a whole, um, not just the talent, but like I said, the ownership, everything. It's Atlanta for me. Like I said, whether or not they deal Julio Jones and Matt Ryan, I'm hoping they don't. Especially if I'm a head coach, I think that right now with the Jags projected to get Trevor Lawrence or even Trevor Lawrence, I don't think that the Jets will now go QB unless we were assuming that they're sold on Justin Fields now and they grab him. Who knows? I don't think they go QB now that
I don't
Trevor
think they
Lawrence is
should.
off the board. Um, I don't think they should either. I think that leaves room for them to maybe trade back. Maybe Atlanta trades up and gets them a Justin Fields,
He's from
which
Atlanta
would be great.
or from Georgia at least.
100%. They have loads of talent. 100%. And if they have a very young defense, So depending on who you bring in at defensive coordinator to coach them up, very talented young guys who got better throughout at the end of the season, performed immensely at the end of the season compared to what they were not able to do in the beginning. Um, so like I said, I feel like they have loads of talent. They have the best chance at winning sooner, and just the culture of that team, 100%. I'm magnetized. I'm going to
But who
Atlanta.
do you, out of all the coaching candidates, who do you think's like the best fit for that team?
I feel like it's Eric Bieniemy. For the simple fact that I feel like with the offensive talent they currently have on the roster, and that's before trading Matt Ryan, Julio Jones, assuming uh, that they, are planning to go that route, and even if they do go that route, like I said, grabbing a Justin Fields, still having Calvin Ridley, if you're able to retain Todd Gurley, who, you know, Eric Bieniemy will probably be able to use him in the passing game, something that Atlanta failed to do this season, which I think they should have done more of. I think he has a better chance at kind of replicating what he did in KC with a team like Atlanta that's already has such talented skill position players. So I do think that is the best fit for them, or for him and for them. I think that team would go
I
great
think the
hand
only
in
thing
hand.
working against Atlanta in that situation is their cap situation. And that's because they're
Yeah.
currently, I think, 24 and a half, 25 million under cap, which is why they're thinking about offloading Julio or Matt Ryan, per se. But I think you're right. I think Eric Bieniemy, for me, his best fits were Houston and Atlanta. Um, Atlanta more so because they have tons of weapons on the offensive end, uh, similar to how he has in KC, which is what you were echoing. Todd Gurley, I think, is a, whether you think he's his old self or not, he's still a really good goal line back. And the strength of his was, catching out of the backfield, which Dirk Cutter, uh, didn't utilize at all. It was their offense was very predictable when he wasn't in the game. It was more likely that they were passing than running, um, which is why I think they need an offensive minded head coach, and Eric Bieniemy would be perfect. Um, so I'd love to see
I
that,
agree.
and I definitely would love to see Justin Fields in Atlanta. Uh, you know, hey, him and Todd Gurley, I might be I might have to be on the sideline with Isaiah rooting for him as long as they ain't playing the Giants.
Yeah. Hey man, I'd love to see him in an Atlanta Falcons jersey. Um, More than anything, players like him. Um, I feel like he'll get an opportunity that a player that I like in Dwayne Haskins wasn't offered in Washington. Um, I almost as much as a guy coming out of college, a top prospect, you'd hope that he could turn around a team in general because he is a top
Yeah.
prospect for that reason. It's still so tough when you go into such an environment, and it almost feels like these guys aren't given uh, the right opportunity or even just a good enough opportunity. I think Atlanta for Justin Fields would be perfect, um, especially if they still have Matt Ryan by the time the season comes and he sits under him. That'd be great. Um, a team that probably does want him, because if I'm Atlanta, I do want him. Um, and a team that'll give him an opportunity to thrive because he's not coming into a situation where his offense is completely depleted. Especially because I don't think Atlanta, um, if they do get rid of Julio and Matt Ryan, they might be, but I don't think they are. If they get rid of one or the other, I think they're still capable. But I think if they get rid of both, then they're in a complete rebuild. If they don't, then you know, I think Justin Fields would be fine because he's not in a completely depleted offense. And so I think that'd be a great fit for him, especially if they do end up going the route of
I think if
Eric
they don't
Bieniemy.
go quarterback in the draft, I think Dwayne Haskins would be a good option to bring in and like put under Matt Ryan's wing. I think he has potential. I think he's obviously not carrying himself the best off the field, which I think that just comes with maturity. But in terms of talent, he has it. He just has to, he needs people who are invested in him to kind of help mold him. and he didn't have that in Washington. And these franchises are carrying these teams more like businesses, per se, which they're carrying these players and they're looking at them as they're expendable. Uh, so you have to produce, and if not, you're going. Like they are not giving these young quarterbacks time to develop. Just look at Josh Rosen, per se. After 1 year, they went Kyler Murray. Kyler Murray, and a lot of people are saying Sam Darnold is out. And they might go the route of quarterback, which I disagree. I think they need to surround him. I think he has a lot of potential. The Giants, a lot of fans are bashing Daniel Jones and want him gone too. And I think he's shown enough to stay. I mean, and granted, there's bad with the good, but he's showing that there's potential, and that's giving you something that you can work with. But if I was a coach, Jacksonville is very appealing. This is not my location, but Jacksonville is very appealing because they have They have at least 80 million in cap space. They have 2 first-round picks, 2 second-round picks, a third, and they have 7 picks between the 4th and 7th round, which is why Urban Meyer might be interested in that position if they were willing to pay him some big bucks. But also that it's close, no state income tax, and it's close to the University of Florida where he's the coach. But the position that I would be interested in most would be the Los Angeles Chargers. They have a lot of proven pieces. Like Jacksonville, they have a lot of young pieces in place that have potential on both offense and defense. But the Chargers have players in place that can ball. Like they have Joey Bosa on the defensive end. They have Kenneth Murray, which they just drafted out of Oklahoma, who proved his rookie season that he can ball. They have Derwin James, who's one of the best safeties in the league when healthy. That's just a glimpse. And then on the offensive end, you have your quarterback of the future in Justin Herbert, who balled out his rookie season. And if it wasn't for them losing close games, they could have been a playoff team.
And if it wasn't for Justin Jefferson
going
off,
he could have won Rookie of the Year
and breaking a Randy Moss record,
and then they have Austin Eckler, they have Keenan Allen, they have Mike Williams. On the offensive end, they have Hunter Henry, but he's a pending free agent. But I'm pretty sure they can keep him. The only thing they're missing on offense is the offensive line, and defense is just to stay healthy. So that's probably the most appealing to me. And the coach that I think would be perfect. I mean, they requested to interview Jason Garrett, and as a Giants fan, I love to hear it because I need him to get the fuck out of New York. And I think that would honestly force the Giants to go in a different direction because with our luck, he'll stay if not. But the coach that I think is a perfect fit for them is Brian Daboll, from the offensive coordinator from Buffalo. We've seen what he was able to do with Josh Allen, who has a very similar skill set to Justin Herbert. They're both very athletic for their size. And as a quarterback, they have a huge arm. So just look at the leap that he has made from last year to this year. You can say he's in the MVP conversation. Rather, will he win? No. There's just other, candidates that have performed better, but he's in the conversation. And
he's having an
MVP worthy season. And it's a lot of it has to do with Brian Daboll and the arrival of Stephon Diggs. But if you bring him to that offense in LA, you already have a number 1 receiver in Keenan Allen and a quarterback with a very similar skill set. I think he could help him develop to become even better, and that offense will thrive to the point where they'll put up enough points to not even be in these close matchups. Like a lot of the matchups they lost, they could win, and a lot of it's just borrowing their offensive scheme, which I think Daboll will help out. And if he brings a great defensive mind, it's more the health of that defense because they have the talent in place.
Yeah, I agree.
And they have I think $30 million in cap space, so that helps out too.
But to touch a little bit on when you spoke about the Jets, I agree. I think they do, rather than getting rid of Sam Darnold, they need to put weapons around them. And I heard that there's a team in Atlanta that's trying to offload a receiver. And shout out to my boy Manny from the Expansion Pack podcast. But he did say Julio Jet Jones to the Jets.
Well,
And
I, I,
if Atlanta's trying to get Justin Fields and trade up, that could be possibly part of a trade package.
I can see that happening, but I think someone more in a chance of winning now,
I
like
do agree with
will
that.
trade
Yep.
for Julio just because he's on the opposite side of 30. I think more. I think a better option for them will be a running back from you know your favorite school, Ohio State. I think Ezekiel Elliott will. I think might be a better option. I think they might look to offload his contract so that they can pay Dak. Um, they seen what the team was like without him and without Dak, I should say, and they realize how important he is to that team.
I mean, honestly,
And Anthony Pollard, he stepped up, so that
yeah.
shows that Zeke might be expendable
I mean, and it's unfortunate that Dak had to get hurt for the Cowboys to realize that.
for sure.
But that's exactly what that did, was open Jerry Jones' eyes, because that team was completely garbage after his injury.
So if I'm the Jets, this is what I do. You have the number 2 pick. If your first option should be to trade back, try to get a similar package that you had to give away to trade up to get Sam Darnold.
Yep.
If not, draft Penei Sewell, the left tackle out of Oregon, and you would put him at left tackle, move Mekhi Becton to right tackle, who he played well at left tackle, but in terms of injury concern, he wasn't the healthiest. So moving him to right tackle can still benefit. You're protecting Sam Darnold and your investment, and then you go trade and get Zeke Elliott, which now that offensive line investment helps out both Sam Darnold and Zeke, and getting Zeke, who's a proven running back, can offload the pressure off of Sam Darnold, and you can get a receiver in the later rounds or the second or third round. This draft class is as deep, if not, well, I'm not gonna say deeper, but it's as deep as last year's class. So you can get a receiver late, and if not, you can get one in free agency. There's plenty. They have enough cap space to go out and do so. They have at least 70 million. I think that's the way to go, but their defense is still ass, and I think most of that cap space needs to go towards their defense. So, in terms of revitalizing their offense, that was where I was going
100%. I mean, I agree with all those moves. The Jets need to do something,
for sure.
because
I mean,
I don't know. I don't know why Jets fans ever thought they were running New York.
I don't know either. But that's all we have for you guys today. We appreciate you guys for tuning in. If you haven't already, go like, follow, and subscribe. We appreciate you guys for tuning in. We appreciate you guys if you go like, follow, and subscribe. And if you haven't already, go check out our guys at the Expansion Pack podcast. I know Jovan mentioned them not that long ago, but go check them out if you're a big fan of gaming or gaming news, and you're looking for a place to go get your gaming content and laugh along the way. It's the podcast for you. And go check out our guy Don from '96 dropping some content. Now that it's 2021, look out for his upcoming single. It's called Nutcase. So be on the lookout. Go check out his SoundCloud.
And if you like the song that we had in that previous episode that he was actually on, and you do want to listen to him, or you want to know when he's dropping, he is actually back on Instagram, like he was saying he would be, at Down from 96. So, go show him some love, go give him a follow, as well as Expansion Podcast. And I know Devin said leave a comment and say who you got winning the Natty. But we also want to know what game you're looking forward to in these NFL playoffs. What are you hoping if your team is when your team is one of the ones looking for a coach? Who you hoping you hire? Who you hoping you draft? Let us know. What you want to see from your team in this offseason. So it doesn't have to be about the Natty. We would love to know who you pick, but anything you want to leave a comment.
For sure, for sure. I just want to let you guys know more content is on the way. Bigger and better, balls deep. 2021. Just know that we put out on our social media pages that our schedule has changed. We're gonna be dropping content every Tuesday and Thursday. And every Wednesday is our poll of the week. So make sure to go check those out and comment as well. But that's all we have for you guys today. Peace.
You're talking about balls deep. I'm talking about balls deep. We're talking about balls deep in love. I'm talking about balls deep. My boy's talking about balls deep. We're talking about balls deep in love.